Welcome, dear friends, to Echoes of the Baobab, where the whispers of our ancestors, the songs of the land, and the heartbeat of Africa come alive. Here we chase meaning and not what's trending. We seek to discover and recover who we were, and most importantly, we unite across tribes, borders, and cultural heritage through lessons learned and experiences shared. Gather close as we journey through tales woven in the shade of the great Baobab, stories of courage, love, wisdom, and wonder passed down through generations. The fire is warm, the night is young. Let us hear what the Baobab echoes tonight. Long ago, nestled between hills rich with red soil and steeped in tradition, a place where ancient trees whispered secrets of the wind and witnessed covenants, there was a village called Nkobi, a place once sacred, a land once ruled by ancestral law, a people once deeply connected to the earth and the sky. But they had compromised, they had forgotten, they had progressed, I guess. For every advancement, for each new development, an ancient piece of Nkobi was lost, forgotten, set aside as no longer relevant in these modern times. Yet still, someone remembered. Someone kept the ancient ways in hope, truly as a silent prayer that someone else would also want to remember and keep sacred who they were. At the very edge of Nkobi lived a woman known to all, simply as the Herbalist. She was old, wise. She spoke to plants and walked with spirits. And that morning, as she knelt in her garden, her hands upon the soil, she felt the earth between her withered fingers and frowned. Her heart beat in her ears as she dug her fingers deeper into the earth. "Dry," she whispered. "Too dry." Was this what the winds had been whispering about? Was this why the air felt brittle? Her heart sank even as she grabbed her walking stick to steady herself as she rose from her position. She had to warn the people. She had to urge them to remember. Because if they did not, the rain would not come. The herbalist prepared herself as she made her way towards the market square. She knew her people. She had watched them accept foreign practices and cast aside their own. She had tried being there for all who wanted to learn and know who they were. But modernity was enticing, mixing cultures and blending traditions encouraged. So she too was set aside. She entered the market square, her staff tapping against the earth as she made her way towards the announcement bell. All around her trade was taking place. People laughing, haggling, and gossiping. If the situation was not as it was, if it was not so urgent, this sight would have made her smile. Instead, she wanted to cry. Her people were oblivious, blinded, and without shame. She rang the bell and gained people's attention. She cried out to the people, "Uchomde, you have forgotten who you are. The rain is turning away. The springs are sinking away," the old woman said, her voice thick with urgency and emotion. Those who had stopped to pay attention to her only laughed. "Nkobi has never lacked water," they said. "We have boreholes, wells, and taps in every homestead." This was their reply to her. The young ones looked at her like an old fool, someone who had finally lost her senses. After all, their parents had said she rejected advancement and lived in the old ways, and this was the result, Nkobi lacking in water. They scoffed at this, and at the very thought that Nkobi would ever not see rain. The herbalist's words fell on deaf ears and laughing tongues. She was mocked as she made her way home. An old woman defeated by the arrogance and ignorance of her people. In a quiet corner of the village lived Zuri, the first and only daughter born after 7 brothers, a child that should have been whispered about by the elders if they remembered such significance, but ignored by a modern village, and she liked it like that. If only she could get her family to ignore her too. Unfortunately for her, being average and having different interests to her age mates meant that her family, especially her mother and sisters-in-law, they always noticed and would loudly bring attention to her strange or weird behavior. And one such behavior was that she often visited the herbalist. And one evening, about a week after the herbalist's visit to the market square, as the fire crackled, she asked, "Grandmother, what is the rain dance? What is the covenant?" The herbalist closed her eyes, as a way to ward off the sudden tears that threatened to fall. Finally, after so long, someone dared to ask. Someone finally wanted to know. The old woman cleared her throat, suddenly filled with emotion, and began to speak. "It was how we spoke to the sky," she said, "a covenant in rhythm, a call to the heavens. It was a promise. It is a promise given to us, and a promise that has now been broken by us," she said dejectedly. That sacred covenant once bound them to the spirits of rain and land. The covenant was simple, but its blessings were abundant. They had welcomed outsiders, adopted new customs, and forgotten an ancient law, that ancient covenant that the firstborn son and daughter of every Nkobi clan head were never to marry outside of the Nkobi clan bloodlines, and now even the sky would go silent. After all, a child who does not hear must feel. Zuri helped the herbalist prepare for what was coming. The herbalist taught Zuri the old ways of preserving and storing water and foodstuff. Zuri's sisters-in-law laughed and mocked her as she prepared around her home too. Thankfully, her father was home one early afternoon, a rare occurrence, when he heard his 3 daughters-in-law mock Zuri as she was preserving fruit in a way he faintly remembered his own grandmother doing. "Enough!" His voice booming across the backyard, he watched Zuri fondly. She was his answered prayer. He continued on to say, "Let Zuri do as she deems fit. She is not hurting anyone. Our people used to say, it is better to be prepared than be in need." Her family was not the only ones who mocked. The village youths took pleasure in mocking her and the herbalist. And time, it moved quickly and slowly all at once. The rainy season was here, but the rains did not come, so Zuri stood. She went to the herbalist and said, teach me the dance and how to keep the covenant. Even if I'm alone, I want to remember. Even if I am the last, let me keep the promise." The herbalist saw the sincerity in Zuri's eyes and heard it in her voice, so she agreed. 1 week turned into 2, 2 weeks turned into 3. As the weeks passed without a drop from the sky, the people of Nkobi had refused to listen, and now they were struggling. The streams that led into homes dried up first. The bubbling springs began to sink far below the limits known to them all. The cattle groaned and the crops they began to wither. The mocking laughter that had followed Zuri and the herbalist was gone, and in its fear and silence. Never before had the people of Nkobi had to take turns at the riverside fetching water. Never before had crops and cattle suffered like this. For 7 days and nights she danced under the stars. She learned the old steps, the spiral wind, the thunderclap, the pulse of water. She learnt prayers in a language she could not name, but her soul knew intimately. With each drum beat, her heart beat in unison. Zuri had faith, and on the 7th sunset, she climbed to the hilltop above the village, a place where the sacred stones sat, a place where the elders of Nkobi once gathered, a place Nkobi had deserted. Those who had seen Zuri on her way to the hilltop instinctively followed her, and so the people gathered below, with the setting sun as her backdrop. Zuri knelt at the center of the stones and prayed. She prayed for Nkobi. She prayed for forgiveness. She prayed for redemption. She prayed for strength. And as the final rays of the sun set the sky alight, she raised her ceremonial drum and beat it. And then she danced. She danced in thanksgiving. She danced on a promise. She danced until it seemed as though the stars in the sky danced with her and twinkled for her. She danced with the memory of generations. With each stomp, the earth listened. With each clap, the clouds gathered. With each chant, the ancestors returned. And then, rain, soft at first, Then, pouring, laughter, tears, knees to the ground, the people rejoiced. Zuri climbed down the hilltop amongst the jubilation. She searched for the herbalist, but she was gone. So gathering her last strength, Zuri ran to her hut, her heart filled with dread. As she reached the hut, Zuri began shouting, "Grandmother! Grandmother!" But only the sound of the rain answered her back. The herbalist was gone, but through Zuri, Nkobi would remember again. Nkobi remembered its name, and the spirits, hearing it once more, answered. When the land forgets itself, the skies fall silent. But when one child remembers, the ancestors return. This is what the Baobab echoed about Nkobi. What will it echo about you? Do you remember who you are? Have you kept the ways of your people sacred and pure? Let us not become like the people of Nkobi, filled with arrogance about blessings given when we are ignorant of how to maintain that abundance. Like, share, comment, subscribe to know what the Baobab will echo next.